So this is a book I teach at college, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Been teaching it for about 10 years. My poor students, they don't have a cheerleader teaching the book. I love the book. I love Viktor Frankl. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker for the book. Um, I'm not a true believer. I'm an agnostic with a lot of sympathy for the book. I have some doubts about the book. What he says is, and I try to apply this to my students' life, is that no matter how horrible your situation is, and he argues that suffering is the dominant element of your existence, that you have to choose, you have the freedom to choose your reaction to your suffering. You have the freedom to be courageous and be of service to the world, or you can choose to be just a base consumer, a selfish, bitter little self-pitying, entitled narcissist. It's almost a binary universe in Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. It appears that you're either going toward one horrible, abysmal direction or the better direction. It appears in Viktor Frankl's universe there's not a lot of gray, and perhaps that's why I'm an agnostic toward the book. I wonder if my students are better served by me teaching it, because perhaps someone who's a little skeptical is going to be more effective than some rah-rah cheerleader that might alienate the students. Someone going, class, we're going to talk about meaning. It's going to change your life. Maybe they need someone who's a little more gimlet-eyed. I don't know. Another thing he says is you can't search for meaning. That's not what meaning's not something out there. I had a student from China. He wrote an amazing essay about this, how you can't search for meaning. His father told him a family story about this young man who went to the beach, and he looked up into the sky and he said, God, what is the meaning of life? And God pointed his finger down at all these tens of thousands of boulders by the beach, all these rocks and boulders. And he said, son, lift those rocks, and eventually, underneath one of the rocks, you will find meaning. So this young man, about 19 years old, he spends the next 100 years lifting rocks at this beach. And he's like 120 years old. He's about to die. He's never found anything underneath any of the rocks. And he looks up at God. And he says, there's nothing here. I lifted every rock at the beach, and I found nothing. Huh? What do you have to say to that? And God looks down at him and says, number one, you're an idiot. Number two, you shouldn't believe anything people tell you. And then the guy dies, and God just laughs at him. What's the moral of that story? The moral is you can spend too much time searching for meaning and just start, your wheels just spin and you go nowhere. You go nowhere. So I think Viktor Frankl says you can't find meaning. Meaning has to find you, but meaning won't find you unless your character is like a fertile soil to receive the meaning, which is a very daunting task. When you try to compare yourself to Viktor Frankl, who was a true hero. He risked his life in the concentration camps to serve others, a man that clearly deserves our admiration. So these are some of the big things. He says another thing he says that's important is you cannot search for happiness or success. In fact, those are infantile, or at the very best, adolescent impulses that are doomed to failure. Rather, success and happiness are byproducts of a meaningful life. So in this context, I tell my students that you pretty much have three paths, three choices you can take in life. You can be a slacker, you can be a consumer, or you can be a destiny seeker. A slacker is someone who drops out of my college class, doesn't have a plan B, says, I'm just going to get a job at Starbucks. I'm going to have 12 roommates. We're going to have potluck every night. And or you're going to live with your mom until, while you're in your 50s, you're going to be living in your mom's basement, walking around with a bathrobe, eating Hot Pockets and Pop-Tarts. And you're not hardwired for that life. You need to understand that. As long as I need to tell my students, you're not hardwired to be a slacker and be happy. Viktor Frankl will tell you that the easy life will bring you to depression. It will make you miserable because you're not hardwired for it. Viktor Frankl says you're hardwired for stress, tension, and hard work in the context of having a higher purpose. So if you don't have the type of higher purpose that inspires you to work your butt off, you're going to be miserable, you're going to be empty. The slacker's life will always result in apathy, acedia, depression, what Viktor Frankl calls the existential vacuum. Now, the majority of us, we do path number 2. Consumerism. Really, in America, as I give this brief presentation, the dominant religion of America is consumerism. We wake up in the morning and we look up from our bed, and on the ceiling is the giant green butt of ambition, and we kiss the giant green butt of ambition every morning blindly, because we live in a country where greed has somehow become synonymous with moral character. You can be rich, you can be like a predatory investor, and people go, oh, he has such great character, he's so disciplined. I want my children to be just like you. And you know, you could just have this appetite for greed, just be a greedy pig, and people will say, oh, there's a real American character right there. The problem with consumerism, according to Viktor Frankl, is you're not hardwired to be happy with consumerism. Consumerism will always make you miserable. You know, you're gonna take my college class. You're all good, smart people, and because after you get your degree and because you're a good person, you know, your employer is going to do a background check. You're going to be vetted, and you're going to pass because you are all good people, and you're going to get hired at some job somewhere, and you're going to get a lanyard, and you're going to get a little parking card, and you're going to go to the underground parking garage every day. It's going to take you like an hour to get to work. You're going to put your parking card in the slot, and the giant arm is going to go up, and you're going to go into the underground parking. You're going to have a little partition where you're going to do work, a little tiny desk with a photograph of your family on it. You're going to work till 6. You're going to drive another hour and a half home. You're going to be exhausted. Your children are going to be on their iPads when you get home. You'll talk to your wife for 5 minutes. You'll collapse on your bed. You'll fall asleep with your shoes on. You'll have saliva dribbling down your mouth. Your life will be just one of obligation, because you have kissed the giant green butt of ambition. Now, whenever you get depressed in the consumer lifestyle, you'll buy a new thing, a new smartphone, you'll buy a new watch, you'll buy a new car. And what happens is we're hardwired to be miserable with consumerism because we all have a baseline of happiness. And what happens is you get something new in your life. Oh, I got a premium cable subscription. Oh, boy. And briefly, you have a little spike in happiness, but you always go back to baseline. And so, you know, your biggest day of the year is you go to, it's your birthday, and your family takes you to a Cheesecake Factory or Applebee's, and you're eating a piece of cheesecake, you know, for your birthday, and there's candles on it, and all the servers are singing you happy birthday, and you're just looking around the restaurant going, this is the dream, man. And then you go home, you listen to the Smiths, and you take a bottle of Lexapro or whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying. Viktor Frankl says you are not hardwired to be a consumer. He says that's going to always result in numbness, depression, emptiness, and you don't even know who you are. So consumerism doesn't work, and unfortunately, like 95% of us, we choose that path. The third choice, and this is Viktor Frankl, you have to be a destiny seeker. You have to believe that life has a destiny for you. And I like that a lot. I mean, I like the idea of someone choosing a path that's of service to people, that's helpful rather than one of self-aggrandizement. And, you know, I'm drinking some of Viktor Frankl's Kool-Aid, but I have my doubts. I mean, I've seen some people who are greeters at Walmart, and I don't know. I feel badly for them. They're nice people, but I don't see them as having this great choice of destiny. I saw an old man one time in a coffee shop. He was poor. He had no money. And he was done with his little tiny cup of soup, and yet he was still putting his spoon in the empty cup, hoping maybe that more soup would materialize. I'm not sure what kind of destiny he was seeking. You know, we read in the papers of horrific tales of little children, refugees drowning. I don't know if everyone has the privilege of waiting around and waiting for destiny to find them, meaning to find them. I guess that's the nihilist in me, the part of me that the George Carlin in me that sees life as this illogical freak show, and we get free front row seats to it, and there's no justice or no rhyme or reason. It's just this carnival of chaos. And I don't want to believe that. I don't want to have the George Carlin factor in me. You know, I have twin daughters. They're 5 years old. I don't want to tell them that life is a joke, that life is just a freak show. I want to give them, you know, the Viktor Frankl message, you know, that you have a destiny for you that's better than being a slacker or a consumer. I love the message. I'm not totally drinking the Kool-Aid, but in fact, you know, I'd rather have my students, you know, follow this message. And I know people who have changed their lives, like Kathy Rubin, who was once having a lucrative psychiatry practice. She gave it all up to rescue dogs. She tragically died of breast cancer at an early age a few years ago. But she did have a purpose-filled life. So I know some of us do have the choice. I guess my doubt with Viktor Frankl is I don't know if all of us do. Some of us are just so powerless, or we're overcome with so much. And his message is it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how horrible the suffering you have, you always have the choice. I guess he's more of an absolutist than I am. But I do like the message, and I like the idea of teaching my students you can go down the path of being a slacker, a consumer, or a destiny seeker. But I don't have the final answers on this. I'm going to be exploring this more. I'd like to update any findings I have on this, and until next time, I am out.